just watching a lot of the footage that's coming to us from Ukraine, you see levels of destruction, violence, and so on, which are simply horrific to contemplate. And you wonder how on earth people can continue to live in such an environment under such conditions. And of course, there's a great deal of anger at the Russian tactics, which pay no mind whatsoever to civilian casualties. In fact, seem to be addressed to destroying the confidence of the population by attacks upon the infrastructures, but also attacks upon living conditions. And in other words, this is a rather disastrous situation for the whole population of Ukraine. And compare uh, the destruction you see in Ukraine with the destruction that you would see after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. When you look at that, you'll say, well, this is, the United States did this in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Not only did it do it through the atomic bombs and use of atomic weapons, but it also did so by firebombing. I remember VJ Day, that is Victory Over Japan Day. I was on vacation with my parents in Edinburgh. We had uh, relatives who lived in Edinburgh, so we went to Edinburgh after the war because we hadn't been able to go anywhere very much during the war. And VJ Day occurred there, and I remember being on Princes Street in Edinburgh celebrating VJ Day. But even that evening, I remember there being a big discussion about the rightness of actually utilizing the atomic bombs and in the way they were utilized. The complete neglect and disinterest in the civilian casualties involved, the vileness of that attack. And the United States is still the only country ever to use a nuclear weapon. There are now 8 countries that have nuclear weapons, and we get a good sense of exactly what is implied in the use of a nuclear weapon and what's implied by what happened in Hiroshima. The immediate death from the fireball of about 140,000 people, probably another 100,000 people died within 20 years from radiation related sicknesses and the like. And you get a good sense of what kind of death it is that people go through radiation sickness. This to me then kind of says that there's something to be said about thinking further and more deeply about the nuclear possibilities. And one of the things that came out of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, in Britain at least, was the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND. It was led by, very famous philosophers like Bertrand Russell, politicians and so on, like Michael Foot and so on. So the CND was a very, very important political organization which was militating against the use and the existence of nuclear weapons. Sadly, we don't have an anti-war movement anymore. We don't have the equivalent of a CND movement. What we do have is, I think, a clear recognition that crimes and war crimes were seriously committed by the United States and Britain in 1945 and 1944, and that those crimes stand to be judged and should be judged historically in the same way that war crimes are going to probably be advanced against the Russian authorities. Uh, I have been earlier on very nervous about the situation in relationship to the use of nuclear weapons. I think that it's very much on the agenda that this may happen. If it does happen, it will be terrifying. The results will be terrifying. Radiation, if it goes in as it did in Chernobyl, just a cloud of it around the world, will cause immense damage to everybody and everything. I think this is an issue that requires a lot of political organization and a lot of concern.